Hare coming. This is a very beautiful time for us. We're actually have invited Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardhan Maharaj and Bhakti Kamal Tyagi Maharaj here tonight to speak on the subject of the nature of the soul and inner fulfillment. So I just wanted to give a little brief history of these little of this little production that we're doing tonight. And I wanted to tell you something about Bhakti Pavan Janardhan Maharaj. And he has been practicing, he is a practicing Vaishnav monk and dedicated sannyasi for over 45 years. He is world-renowned teacher of Bhakti Yoga and Krishna consciousness. He had the direct association and service and is a disciple of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who originally brought the teachings of Bhakti Yoga to the U.S. in the 1960s and opened many temples and ashrams worldwide. Swami B.P. Janardhan resides and teaches at the beautiful Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram in Soquel, California, in the Santa Cruz Mountains. SevaAshram.com is our website. There he leads the daily Kirtan, meditation, and morning classes on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, as well as a Sunday class where he answers questions about spiritual life to sincere seekers. So we're asking everybody to please come and join us in Santa Cruz and have the darshan of Bhakti Pavan Janardhan Maharaj. And I'll tell you a little something about Bhakti Kamal Tyagi Maharaj. So, Swami Bhakti Kamal Tyagi is a sannyasi dedicated to practice of Bhakti Yoga and the service of his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Sundar Govindadev Goswami Maharaj. He is very knowledgeable in both Sanskrit and Bengali and is an active publisher and lecturer. He continuously strives to make the truths revealed by the Vedic research scholars and the ancient Vedic scriptures, such as Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, accessible in the modern day. Swami Bhakti Kamal Tyagi Maharaj earned a B.S. degree in environmental studies from the University of California, Santa Cruz, prior to becoming a monk. Now he regularly travels internationally where he teaches at yoga centers, ashrams, festivals, universities, and the homes of all who welcome him. He has taught in the following countries: Brazil, Germany, Hungary, India, Ireland, Italy, Malaysia, Mauritius, Mexico, Nepal, Russia, Singapore, South Africa, Turkey, and the United Kingdom, the United States, and Venezuela. So he has been able to spread Krishna consciousness many places. Also, Bhakti Pavan Janardhan Maharaj also traveled so many places all over the world to spread Krishna consciousness. So now I just want to turn it over to them. Please excuse me. And we will try to open our hearts to receive this knowledge from the Vedas. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
So this is Bhakti Kamal Tyagi Maharaj over here. I'm the other person. So shall we start speaking now? Okay. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyanajana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gurva Bhishtam Supurakam Gurganara Sisha Sambhushitam Chintya Samasta Veda Nipunam Shri Rupa Patanugam Govinda Bidam Ujwalam Bharatanum Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Bande Vishwa Guruncha Divyad Bhagavat Prem Navi Bija Pradam Devam Divyatanum Suchandabaranam Balarka Chelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sareka Varanam Vairagya Vidyamburim Sri Siddhanta Nidim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Vandetam Shubharam Mareka Sharanam Nyashishvara Shidaram Manshakopatarubyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishe Nama. So I'm offering these prayers first before we start. It's the prayers to
Jai Srila Bhakti Kamali Maharaj ki Jai.
Bhakti Kamali Maharaj ki Jai.
These are prayers to our spiritual masters, prayers to all the saints, especially the Vaishnava saints, prayers to those attending here and those listening, the Vaishnavas and friends of the Vaishnavas, like this. So, because this is related with our topic for tonight, which is, in mentioned, every wave is favorable, which is appropriate because we're here. What's the actual name here?
Wave Street Studios.
The Wave Street Studios. And one thing I can mention as kind of an introduction to us, establish our proper perspective. There is a verse in the one literature called Srimad Bhagavatam that says, Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhoksaje ahaituki ya pradiyatya ya yatma suprasidati. Says that which is the actual proper engagement for a person is one which results in one having some attachment for spiritual life, and in particular to establish a loving relationship with the Supreme, who we call Krishna. So Savai Pumsam Parodharmo, because otherwise we may have a limited viewpoint. In the Bhagavad Gita it says, there's a verse that says, Sarvadharma parityaja mamikam sharanam vraja. So it says that you're supposed to give up or reject that kind of viewpoint or that dharma which is materially motivated or which is based on some formal conception of duty or provinciality. That's that idea of dharma. But in the verse I mentioned, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adhoksaje, it says that your proper engagement will be if you develop some actual attachment, some loving relationship with the Supreme, Yato Bhaktir Adhoksaje. And one thing is, it says, Haituki Yapradiyata Yayatma Suprasidati. It's the verse says that engagement should not have any kind of, egotistic or material motivation. A haituki. It should be without any material motivation. Haituki apradiyatma. And it should be without any interruption, which we can say can also be related to catching a wave, because we see in Santa Cruz, Monterey, there are so many people trying to catch waves. I see them on their surfboards, right? And sometimes I see persons sitting on their surfboards for 45 minutes or more waiting for a wave to come in, and some wave will come and they try to catch it, but they're not able to ride that wave. But if we think about, so then this idea of without any material motivation and without any interruption, that may indicate that I'm trying to catch the wrong kind of wave. I'm trying to catch a material wave, and it's not working. Why? Because first of all, how am I going to do anything without any kind of material motivation when I'm inside this body? And this body, first of all, is made of material elements. And you say, well, we have to go beyond the material body. We have to go to the level of the mind. But in the Bhagavad Gita is also establishing that the mind is also, mind, intelligence, and ego form the subtle body. And I'm sure you've had maybe some experience of contact with some subtle bodies that, sometimes if you're sensitive, you can, or even in the Bhagavad Gita it says, Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajit yanti kalevaram tam tam evaite konteya sada tad bhava bhavita. When your body is there and everyone's around you mourning, oh, the person's gone. It doesn't mean that your subtle body is gone. Gita is saying that your subtle body, based on your consciousness, will take you to your next sojourn in the material world. Will take you to your next material body, whether human or animal, plant, insect, whatever, but based on your consciousness. There is, some evolution that's happening on the conscious level. So that will happen. So there's that material body, and then there's also the subtle body that's at work. But in terms of my actions, how am I going to transcend? What are the actions of my senses, and what are the actions of my mind and in my intelligence and my ego? These are all, you can say, encasements for my soul, for my actual spiritual existence, my soul. My soul is there, and you can perceive your soul in the form of consciousness. Your whole body is illuminated by consciousness. Well, you can say, well, but some people we see their consciousness is very mundane. So how is that a symptom of spiritual presence of the soul? No, but it's like that consciousness may pass through different kinds of filters, just like light may pass through different kinds of filters, red filters or blue filters or green filters. You can perceive the light like that. So your consciousness is going through different kinds of filters, but the point is that how will my actions be without any material motivation? And even more so, how will my actions be without any interruption? Because I see sometimes I wake up and I just feel like a flow. I'm like this morning, I woke up and I was about 3:30 and I was just thinking about, the subject of this. Every wave is favorable. So, and that this morning, that there was no interruption. But other mornings I may wake up and, I don't really even want to get out of bed. So that's what the material level of consciousness is all about, that, acceptance and rejection. But you can think of going back to the example of the people waiting for the wave, and that wave takes so long to come in. But what is a huge kind of wave that you don't have to worry about catching? If you're on the beach and that kind of wave comes in, you won't have to worry about catching it. It's called a tsunami. That kind of wave, you can be waiting on the beach on your surfboard, and a tsunami comes in. You don't have to worry about riding that wave. That wave will take you. It will carry you for miles. It will be irresistible. So the idea of without any interruption and without any material motivation, if you think of it coming down from a different direction, instead of going from below to up, if you think about that wave descending from above, then that wave will carry you. Just as a tsunami, they can be waiting on the beach forever, but a tsunami comes in, they don't even have to have any skills at riding waves. That wave will take them. So then we can say that the real, every wave is favorable. Well, that wave will carry us, and that wave is ultimately spiritual. That's a spiritual wave, a wave of divine consciousness, and that will descend to us through the proper medium. Now, for one thing, and I used to think, how can it be without material motivation? How can it be without interruption? But another way of seeing is without any material motivation. You can say that means that and without any interruption, that means it's irresistible. Nothing can stop it. It's something that's so beautiful that it will just take you, carry you. That irresistible wave. So in this world, we have a particular viewpoint of things, and that viewpoint, some of us, we've been to India, and in India it's not uncommon that, different than here, you can get from water, you can get a form of hepatitis based on, bacteria. But what is that hepatitis? That hepatitis means, some disease of the liver, and the symptom is that you have this bile going into your blood system, and it will make your eyes look yellow. And I remember I was in India long ago, maybe, 1973 or 70, and I got this, and I was very young. I was like 20, 20 some years old, and I said, hey, I think what was I thought, I think I have an ulcer. I think I have an ulcer, because everything is looking in red, like something's burst. And then somebody looks at my eyes. No, you have hepatitis. And that bile from your system is in your blood. So then if you taste something sweet, like you drink a glass of orange juice, pure orange juice, you taste it, and it's like, who put something into this orange juice? It tastes horrible. Even if you take some, sugar cane juice, if you try it, it will taste very bitter. But that's just the the bile in your system. So Srila Rupa Goswami, one of our great visionary saints, he says that our material condition is like that we cannot perceive in this atmosphere what is really sweet and what is really favorable and what is really divine, because we have this bile in our system, which is actually, our material, what would you say, our material disease. This body which we have is related to that material disease that we have. And therefore we can't perceive the proper taste. But if we become cured of that, become cured of that condition. And one of the cures of that is, actually it's to take something sweet like that. I remember I was with Srila Prabhupada. Said, what can I take? He said, I think, what's the word? Peta or something like that. It means white, it means pumpkin. It's like, what? Crystallized pumpkin. You've probably had that kinds of fruits that are crystallized with, so you eat that and they sell it. And it tastes very, that's actually the condition. It's kind of restoring your natural balance of your system. But Srila Rupa Goswami says, when you're cured of the material disease, then things will have the proper taste. And so when one of the things what we always understand about nature, we can say, one thing our spiritual master Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he talked about, the proper outlook is called sympathetic dealings with nature. And he said, now religion, he said, means proper adjustment. But so, in this world, when we say religion, then people think, is that some kind of sectarian interest, religion? But I was with Srila Govinda Maharaj. We were in in Morelia, in Michoacan, in Mexico. And there was a symposium of religions, and they asked Govinda Maharaj to speak, and they gave him some special honor. Now, Mexico is a very Catholic country. So afterwards, one television person came up to Govinda Maharaj, and she said, that person said, so, your holiness, what is your vision of the Catholic Church? That was the question. You might say, well, it's, they're putting that out there, and like the country is predominantly Catholic. So what is Srila Govinda Maharaj going to say about that? But Govinda Maharaj's answer was very beautiful. He said, all religions are trying to do good for the people because they're trying to take people from the completely mundane or materialistic conception of life and elevate them to a spiritual conception of life. I mean, that should be the real ideal if you accepted the Srila Sridhar Maharaj's definition that religion means proper adjustment. So we're not talking about some religion that, any of the established religions that, we're talking about a conception here, about changing a person's spiritual conception, not because I already mentioned sarvadharmam parijam means give up all material conceptions of religion or of dharma. But there is a spiritual vision. And that spiritual vision is what Srila Govinda Maharaj was talking about when he's talked about how can one change one's conception of life. So ultimately, what we want to be able to do is to be able to see things completely different than what our false ego or our ego is dictating to us in this world. Because, if you, for instance, if you see waves coming out, for instance, if you throw a rock into some water, you'll see some waves come out from where the rock lands, and they look like concentric circles, all emanating out from that point. But if you throw many different rocks into the water, each rock will be a different, point, and so those waves will interject or interact. One wave will hit another. But if all the rocks could go into the same center, then the waves produced would all be concentric. There wouldn't be any clash of waves. So how is it that we can find that common center for everyone? The center where there will be no interreaction due to our ego. Because, you all heard the word namaste and nama, but that word nama means the cancellation of one's ego. Nama so what is the ego? The ego is only something that separates us from the Supreme, but that wave, that ego, you can say not so significant. It's only as big as the Himalayas. It's like that our ego is like a mountain range as big as the Himalayas. That's the only thing that separates us from the Supreme, from our best interest, from the divine, is that ego. So the word nama means offering myself in that divine direction. That means the cancellation of one's ego. And it's all, as I said, related to how we're going to approach, divinity. Ultimately, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he talked about how things are descending us from the divine plane and coming down to us. But they're coming down to us through some medium. And what is that medium? The saints. That's why in so many scriptures, whether it's, the Vedic scriptures or what you call Hinduism or Buddhism or Christianity, any practice that you talk about, you will always see some saints there in that process. And the proper viewpoint that we'll get is through the saints. And therefore, for instance, if we look to Christianity, okay, there were some disciples. Jesus had some disciples. If we look to the Bhagavad Gita, there it says, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te ganam gyaninas tattvadarshina. You approach someone who's tattvadarshi. I'm here as kind of, I'm so to speak, repeating something that I've heard from my spiritual guardians who I've taken shelter of. So I am, in the words of, I'm not like I've received something from, what can you say, from the wholesale house, and I'm doing some small business on the sidewalk, maybe, distributing some goods. Like, I got this from the wholesaler. That person has the huge stock, and he's given me some. You sell these, and then I'll give you some more. So, like that. I've gotten some merchandise from them. But through those saints, I've gotten something I've received. There was one boy I saw. He went up to one of our devotees named Haricharan, and that boy had some tilak on his head like we have on. And Haricharan, he was just, had just bathed, and the boy said to him, and Haricharan said, well, you have tilak on your head. You're supposed to put it on other parts of the body. And the boy said to him, well, at least I have something. You have nothing. So, maybe I don't have some huge quantity of goods. I've gotten some small quantity of merchandise. But how is this descending to us? Tadvidi pranipatina. We're approaching, the last line is tattvadarshi. You approach somebody who's seen the truth, who has realized the truth. That is a teacher. That is a guru. Tattvadarshi. Someone who has seen the truth can impart the truth to you because they've had that vision of reality. And then what are the qualifications? What are the qualifications of a disciple? Or what is the qualification of a true seeker? Srila Govinda Maharaj used to say, I'm mentioning different names, but they're all different teachers of ours. He used to say, I'm giving you this holy name, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, because I believe that you are a sincere seeker. So he would say that, sincere seeker. So pranipat, why be just interested in who's the qualified teacher? One has to also begin to question who is the qualified recipient? Who is actually qualified to receive from that kind of a teacher? In other words, you saw in every practice there are some saints. I'm approaching the saints. What makes me qualified to be able to receive something from them? So pranipat, I'm offering myself in the direction of divinity. I'm not looking for any kind of separate, I'm not looking for a roof over my head, or I'm not looking for 3 solid meals a day. Although, if someone comes with that reason, that's also not bad, but ultimately they have to go beyond that. But pranipat means I'm offering myself in that divine direction. I have no provincial or separate interest, or I'm trying to go beyond them. Pranipat, pariprashna. And I'm asking questions. I'm asking questions because, so one person I heard, he said, that person asked this question. Well, if you have divine vision, said Srila Prabhupada, he said, how many windows are there in the Empire State Building? And Srila Govinda Maharaj said, how many bubbles are there in a mirage? That was his reply. You know, that is a nonsense question. How many, you know, you're asking something along the line of mundane knowledge. How would, you know, if somebody comes up to you and says, have you seen God? Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, if I say yes or I say no, what good will it do you? How will you know? You know, what good is that question? Have you seen God? And one time Srila Sridhar Maharaj said when he was young, he asked one person, one sadhu, one holy man, he said, have you seen God? And he said, I was surprised by the answer that he gave me. He said, suddenly that person became very, very excited and said to me, have you not seen him? Have you not seen who he is? Have you? You know, he became suddenly very emotional, that person. Have you not seen it? You know, so he was taken aback. But, you know, because that person had some excitement about that topic, you know, that he, you know, that's where that person's life was centered. So, pariprashna, some proper questions, like one of our dearly beloved godbrothers, he recently departed. His name was Udamanyu Seva Vikram. And Srila Govinda Maharaj used to say, the only question he used to ask was, will this satisfy you? Is this what you want of his teacher? He said, you know, there are many courses of action, but you tell me, what do you want of me? What do you want me to do? Will can I do, will this satisfy you? Because that person, Udamanyu, he was very selfless. He was living for 13 years in China, you know, and teaching in China. And that was his life. He left everything behind here and was living in China, like that. But he used to just ask that of Govinda Maharaj. Govinda Maharaj, he would, even when he was old, you know, he'd ask Govinda Maharaj, should I stay in China? Will that satisfy you? You know, like that. Do you want this? That was his only question. Not so much a sense of asking questions, or as Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, like I'm some kind of he said, answering, an information booth, that you'll take some answer, put it in your pocket, and then do some business with that answer. You know. Anyway, I mean, I'm just tossing these things out. I mean, pariprashnena means asking questions that are in the direction of revealing divinity to myself. Those kind of questions, pariprashnena and sevaya. Sevaya means I'm engaging myself in some service. Ultimately, I'm engaged in the service of we'll say Krishna consciousness means that I'll be serving Krishna, I'll be serving the Lord's devotees in this way. So we're not really seekers of what's called the absolute truth. We're seekers more, I wouldn't say, we're more seekers what is beyond the conception of the absolute truth. Love, beauty, charm, mercy, affection. These will have a higher standing than the absolute truth may be related to justice. You know, that idea of the supreme, you know, scorekeeper. The supreme scorekeeper, someone with a white beard and he's keeping score. Why will I want that? Rather, I'm approaching that plane and I'm saying, I have nothing. I'm completely disqualified. I have no good qualities myself. But if you will if you, my dear Lord, will give me your mercy, then I have some hope. Otherwise, not. So there's one description that said when one practitioner heard that the Lord is known as Bhaktivatsala, very dear to his devotees, that person became completely depressed. Completely depressed. And why? Because that person is thinking, I'm not a devotee. I'm not really a real devotee. I'm not that kind of person. But when that person heard that the Lord is known as Dina Bandhu or Dina Dayal, who gives mercy to the fallen soul, then that person was very hopeful. So in that way, if I'm trying to receive something from that plane of, and I'll look towards the plane of love, beauty, charm, affection, ecstasy also, I guess, would be included there. Okay, time running out. Somebody's pointing to my watch. Let me just check one thing here. Okay, so anyway, as I said, that I'm not interested in the conception of religion per se, of sectarian interest or provincial interest. But I will say that somebody with some real perception will have to be able to perceive that life itself is spiritual and divine. This is a real gift, just to be alive. That is a gift. That is something spiritual, independent of any religious conception. That is a spiritual gift, just to be the fact. And where is life coming from? Consciousness, soul, your real interest. So anyway, I don't know how much I've stuck to this subject. Every wave is favorable, but that is how I'm seeing this. It's coming to us from above, just as that divine wave flowing to us, and coming to us through the medium of the saints and the devotees, and that is our practicing life. Anyway, Jaggi Maharaj.
Jai. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabaranaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura All right, well, we're very pleased. We feel highly benefited to hear from Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardhan Maharaj about many instances of his long-standing practice of spiritual life and the gist of the scriptures as it's been presented by our Guru Varga. So if we can take to heart what we've heard from Maharaj and apply that in our life, we will be astounded by what sort of great things we will experience. But at his request, I'll also try to offer a few words on this subject, this beautiful theme that was chosen for our event today, that every wave is favorable. And this phrase is something that we in general attribute to our Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj. In various instances, he remarked to this effect, that every wave is bringing us favorable news, or every wave we may experience to be favorable, in these various ways. So this statement, of course, has some context, and within it, if we can draw out its implications, we can see what a jewel it is, what sort of wonderful, profound experience it can open up for us. So we can begin to say, by wave, what do we mean? Anything. A wave, a thought, a feeling, an idea, an emotion, a circumstance, a person, a glance, a gesture, a non-glance, a non-gesture, a non-event, a non-thought, the happening or non-happening of anything. Whatever sort of circumstance, thing that may occur, this may be described as a wave. And why? Right? A wave implies something that is exerting an influence over us from outside of us, irrespective of whether we've invited it and irrespective of whether we can resist it or not. So, fundamentally, we see that we're in the midst of an environment that is beyond our understanding and beyond our control. So to speak, we're in the midst of many waves. Right? Now, where are these waves coming from? Where are they taking us? And how do we like them? Or how do they suit us? Right? Then these questions have to be asked. So if we say first, where are these things coming from? This ongoing flow of circumstances that take place. Or we may say, the ongoing flow of time. How is it happening? How is it that the days are passing in a cyclic way? How is it that the seasons are changing? How is it that the celestial bodies are moving? How is it that our body is aging? How is it that there's this constant flux, this constant flow of change, this constant wave pouring through everything? Right? So the ancient rishis, they've said that we can begin to understand who is the supreme being just by understanding what is time. Just what is the presence of time in your life? Right? It's something like whatever mood you're in, whatever thought you have, whatever action you perform, it can't stop, start, accelerate, or decelerate it. It's just under its influence. Right? So by that we can understand what is our position in relation to the Supreme. We're just one tiny entity under whose will the Supreme, we're one tiny, and the will of the Supreme is just pouring over us like time, like this flow. And then we have to ask ourselves, that flow, that ongoing movement, that's greater than us, that's bigger than we can understand, that's outside of our control, does it have any characteristic? Does it have any particular nature? In other words, is it good? Is it bad? Is it meaningless? Is it great? Is it beautiful? Is it not beautiful? Is it conscious? Is it unconscious? Does it have any inherent characteristic? Or is it random? Is it empty? Is it something to be ignored? So the school of thought that we're here to represent is that of extreme optimism. To say that this flow, this wave that's coming over you, it's more wonderful than at present you have the capacity to conceive. That means as great as you think it could be, easily it's that, and far more. How much more? Infinitely more. To what extent? That however much you've done your best to appreciate it, that's necessarily a negligible amount of how great it is. But there's no fault for trying. There's no points for falling, no foul for falling short on this one. Rather, it's inevitable that we'll fall short. But it's in that falling short that we've experienced what we call being overjoyed. It's too good. It's too much. Right? And the fact that we find ourselves as something small in the midst of something so great is really a wonderful thing. It's a great thing to be. I remember once hearing from Gurudev, and he was talking about Krishna Lila, talking about this, the way that, what it is like to be in the experience of Krishna's pastimes. And then he described it as like a waterfall is falling, and we have like one tiny teacup to catch that. And how much of a waterfall can we catch in our teacup? And nothing, right? But the experience of being over-flooded to that extent, that's what it's like, you know. And so to be small and to get that experience of being over-flooded, of being overjoyed, this is great, actually. This is a desirable position. How wonderful it is to be so small in the midst of something so great. So, from the beginning of the Vedic Canon, the original vibration Om, coming out into the Gayatri, expressing itself further in the form of the Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, Itihasas, and so forth, and ultimately bearing fruit in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. The whole canon of revealed truth coming out from the pen of Vedabas is here to say that there is something so wonderful, something so complete, something so beautiful, and that fundamentally, at the very core of existence, we can simply understand, without even needing to go into detail, that whatever our heart is searching for, yes, that and infinitely more does exist. So look into the environment, look into the wave, and look for that. Without a doubt of whether it's there, or without paying attention to what appears to not be that, but learn to perceive that it's already there. So in short, that's what spiritual life is to approach with that kind of confidence in the pursuit of that kind of positive experience. An experience so positive, it necessarily trumps every possible worldly prospect combined. Right? We want that one real clear. No possible worldly prospect can even be compared to the value of what we're describing right now. Right? Something that's so complete, so fulfilling, so free from defects, right? That to pursue anything less is necessarily to be pessimistic. Right? So how open to goodness, how open to joy are you? That's actually the question. So this type of wave, this type of vibration, this type of quality is existing within the environment, within the ongoing flow of time, as the subtle presence within every possible circumstance that you experience in your life. So what our scriptures, what our gurus teach us is how to see that. How to read the environment in such a way as to perceive the presence of that current. So, for example, when Maharaj began his speech, he began with this prayer, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militang Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. That we offer our obeisance to our Guru, because our Guru has opened our eye and enabled us to perceive the truth, enabled us to perceive light by way of the medicine of his divine instructions. So this is what the eye is opened to see. This is what we call darshan, or spiritual perception, to open our eye to see divinity. And when we open our eye, we see what has already been there all along. And when we have that experience, you might think, oh my gosh, this incredible thing's been right in front of me all along. You might think we'd get frustrated and say, oh man, I'm so stupid, or I'm so foolish, right? But actually, it's just so good that you won't even want to waste your time being frustrated. There's even nothing to regret. You know, it's so wonderful. Whatever it took to experience it, whatever sacrifice, whatever hardship, whatever went on in the course of reaching this end, it's so fulfilling that once you reach it, whatever took place in the process feels like a negligible degree of sacrifice. You feel like you got off easy. You feel like you came practically without any effort. Right? So however much struggle you have, however much difficulty you have, however many things you may stress or worry about, what you're pursuing is something that is going to be so fulfilling, it's going to make those things completely negligible. So to perceive that wave, to be blessed, to have such an experience, that is the object of life. That is the purpose of revelation, the purpose of spiritual culture, and generously speaking, the purpose of religion. So to learn to see that every wave is favorable, or within every wave is that favorable current. This is to conceive that it is favorable to us, that there is something, our best interest is already represented in the nature of existence, in the way things are going on. So, click. Level 1. This is, every wave is favorable, level 1. Right? This is favorable to you, right? You ready for level 2? Right? Where it's not about you anymore. It's about, now we're entering into a higher plane of experience filled with this type of quality. Okay, where things are inconceivably more wonderful than you could ever conceive, and you're being inundated. Okay, you're swimming now. You're in the flow. It's so great. But when you're in that flow, what do you actually come to realize? That none of this is about you at all. That you're a very, very tiny, insignificant, albeit very fortunate part of something far greater than yourself. And that every wave is not only favorable to you, it's rather favorable to Krishna. It's rather favorable to the source from which they come. It's representing the interest of the Absolute. And your interest is automatically included within that. So, Gurudev, one of his favorite verses he liked to describe about Krishna, that we find very beautifully described in this book, Religion of the Heart. There it begins with this line, Sarvat Bhutta Chamatkara Leela Kalola Varidi. What is the distinguishing characteristic of Krishna? This particular personal form of the Supreme Being, this Supreme Personality of Godhead. What quality do you find in having a relationship with this aspect of divinity that isn't found in any other possible type of worship or spiritual relationship or experience? Then the first distinguishing point is this, that Krishna is as if a personified ocean filled with waves of Leela that are completely astounding. Adbhuta Chamatkar means like amazingly astounding. Every single one. Right? Means every single moment, every single circumstance, every single new event is astonishingly more wonderful than the last. And is coming out effortlessly, ceaselessly, endlessly. This is what it is to have a relationship with Krishna, to be a part of his play, of his purpose, of the way he moves, breathes, thinks, plays, and so on. So this is the prospect of Krishna consciousness, to enter into that type of experience. But to do that requires, as Maharaj beautifully illustrated for us, the wholesale dissolution of our false ego. Complete surrender of the self to that loving, sweet interest of Krishna. So every wave is representing Krishna's interest. And that, if we can appreciate that, if we can adjust ourselves according to that, we will see how it is favorable, or it is wonderful, or it is better than what we could have conceived or even wanted in the first place. So this is the underlying flow, the underlying current of existence is moving in this way. But as Maharaj gave this analogy, when you throw rocks into water and we see interrupting waves, right? Then on the surface of this, we have the waves created by our own egotistical interests. These are of two types. primarily the pursuit of selfish enjoyment, and secondly, the pursuit of self-extinction and withdrawal, non-participation. So these two waves are there interrupting or distracting us from this undercurrent. So what we can summarize the whole of spiritual practice as leaving that superficial wave and connecting with the undercurrent, connecting with the main wave. These are what Gurudev called the waves of kama and prema, or what Param Guru Maharaj said, the waves of exploitation, renunciation, and dedication. So to enter into that wave, that ongoing flow of service to Krishna, requires us to conceive of ourselves not as in an individual at liberty to enjoy, but rather as an instrument eager to serve. And within giving of ourselves, within engaging ourselves and dedicating ourselves to the service of Krishna, we find in that act of giving our own fulfillment. And in doing so, we become more inclined only to give, more inclined only to serve. And thereby, the transaction or the intensity with which this wave is moving, in other words, this wave of Krishna's desire, Krishna's interest is coming over us. And when we sympathetically receive that and render service to it in kind, then the cycle is going back towards the center. And then more charge, more bandwidth is more data is coming in the bandwidth towards us. And the more we can efficiently convert that energy that's brought to us into a service offering in return, the more starts to go through. The greater the intensity, the greater the density of flow. And in other words, the greater intensity of joy, the greater intensity of realization of our potential. So we may say that there are two cycles by which things may move between two entities. One, the cycle of give and take, or work and exchange. That I'll do something for you, and you'll do something for me. Right? I'll work, and you pay. Right? And as soon as I see that you're not going to pay, I'm not going to work anymore. This is one model. The other model is, I'm going to serve. And whether or not you return to me anything at all, it's not my object. I'm here to serve. And someone receiving such service may be naturally compelled to offer something free, not payment, but wow, this person has been not shown such an act of virtue, such an act of goodness to freely give something. I also want to give something free in return. And they may, out of kindness, as a blessing, they may extend something in return. And receiving that, we may be further inclined to serve. So this is what Param Guru Maharaj called service and grace. These correspond. This is one cycle of exchange. Service and grace. Service and grace. Both are free. Grace means it's given for free. You don't have to give anything in return, it's just given to you. And service means it's just given. You don't have to pay me back in return. Free gift and a free offering. Or, I'll work if you pay me, and I'll pay you if you work. So same thing, right? Same cycle of exchange, but opposite slant, opposite in because in one, the two have a common interest, simply being good, simply expressing what is natural to oneself. And in the other, people have two opposite interests. I have one interest, you have another, and we're using each other for a relative degree of the fulfillment of both. So, spiritual practice means to enter into that cycle of service and grace, to be a happy member of that cycle, and to feel content in that flow of exchange. So when we enter into that, we can see that every wave is favorable. Every wave is like some wave of grace coming down to give us another opportunity to serve. One way Param Guru Maharaj put it, he said, we'll see ultimately everything is just like fruit falling out of the sky. Like, that's it. There's just all this wonderful stuff just coming out of anywhere. That's actually how the enlightened people feel. There's this constant transmission, broadcast of such wonderful things. And that's inspiring, compelling people to serve more and more in kind. And one is increasing the other is increasing the other. In this way, the infinite is expanding. The infinite flux is in motion. This is reality. This is normal. This is for clear-minded people. But this, superficial world of the senses and conflict of interest and aging and death and suffering and karma, this is all a bad dream created by the false ego. This is what happens when no one's reading that universal wave and only pursuing some superficial levels within that. So to in what our Param Guru Maharaj called, dive deep into reality, to catch that undercurrent. That is the call of the scriptures, the call of the sadhus, the call that comes into a clean heart when they receive some grace. And to appreciate that, we need to see that life is itself a learning process. This is the beginning of coming out from the false ego, is thinking, I've got a lot to learn. What I know now, what I do now, what I think now, it's not complete. That's so hard to understand, but yet so easily we slip off of it. My current opinion is not comprehensive. My current knowledge is not complete. My current skills are not absolute. I could learn. I could do better. Right? To conceive of oneself as an eternal student. And then to see the flow of circumstance in our life as opportunities to learn, opportunities to practice, opportunities to put these principles into action. We can all say every wave is favorable and there's divine grace pouring out of everything. Okay, let's see it in your life. How do you act? How do you treat people? What do you value? What do you trust? Right? Is that visible? Is such optimism? Is such prospect? Is such joy? Do people see that in your behavior, in your speech, in the way you treat them? So there's a digestion process. There's a process by which this we actually become an instrument and a conduit for current of this quality. So what is that process? It's experiencing its opposite. It's working through the consequences of all the egotistical action that we've already done. And this is a happy thing, right? Like I can share one story, like as an example of this. The story is about a clump of dirt. Does that sound, you would like to hear a story about a clump of dirt? Once upon a time, there's a happy clump of dirt. And it lives with Mama Clump and Daddy Clump and Brother Clump and Sister Clump in the midst of many other clumps. And they, do nothing. They sit there as a clump, But they're content to be clumps amongst their fellow clumps, and they're clumping along through time. Right? And then one day, right, a truck arrives, and people jump out, and shovels appear, and the clumps are alarmed, and soon enough, digging! Ah! And one sad young clump got dug up, right? And as he was raised into the shovel, he looked at Mama Clump and Brother Clump and thought, will I ever clump with you again? And then, boosh, he landed in a truck. And then so many other clumps came down on his head and his back, and he was packed in with all these other clumps that he didn't know and that were different and were from like the other side of the dirt pile, you know, that had like little clumps that were like the opposite shape on them. And I don't know these other clumps, and who are these clumps, and I don't like being so close to you, and where are we going? And this clump was suddenly alarmed. And then the truck starts, and now it's bumping, and he's bumping in these other clumps, and these other clumps aren't nice to him, and he's not really being nice to these other clumps either, and he's rattling along, and then he's just thinking, I don't know what's going to happen. What is going on in my life? This is just bewildering. Time passes. Eventually, the truck stops, and then a little while later, they hear some more noise, and then again, the shovels are striking in this clump. Oh no, am I gonna get, you know? And then he gets flown out onto another pile, and then oof, he clashes onto this pile, and he's with this clump and that clump, and he doesn't know any of these clumps. And then, soon enough, somebody comes and scoops him up, and then slams him down on a table, and then covers him with water, and then starts like just smashing him, just bending him in every direction. And he's, this is, what's happening to me? You're deforming me. And he gets mixed with all this water, and he gets deformed, you know. And then he gets clumped in with a bunch of other things, and then, you know, he's stuck and he can't move. And then the water starts to go away, and he's stuck in this awkward position, and he's not doing. And then a few minutes later, suddenly everything's dark, and then suddenly it starts to get really, really, really hot, and it's like burning me. It's so hot, you know. And then suddenly he's like petrified in place. It was, and then again he gets taken out. Now he's feeling a little better, you know. And then, you know, somebody comes and puts him in this box, you know. But the box is like really soft. Yeah, okay, this is kind of nice, you know. And then after a while, the box goes somewhere, and then, you know, he comes out, and suddenly he looks, and it's like this. There's all these really nice lights on him, and he's looking around, and there's like well-dressed people like looking at him for a while, and like kind of seeing, you know, and he's kind of like, wow, why are all these people paying attention to me? Wow, why am I like the center of attention? And then after a few minutes, somebody goes by, and you think that's really worth $100? And he's, $100? I'm worth $100? And suddenly he's overjoyed. Oh, wow, look at this. Long ago, I was just a clump out there. I was worth nothing. Now I'm worth $100. And he feels very happy. And somebody comes along and pays $100. And then, you know, he gets put in the centerpiece on a table, and everybody looks at him and admires him and compliments him. And he lives the happiest life any clump ever had. He made it big in the clump world, so to speak. Anyway, maybe a little childish, the story. Excuse me if it's too silly. But what we mean to say is that in this example, someone goes through so much austerity. They get separated from their family. They get beaten. They go through so many difficulties. But ultimately, they become worth something. They become beautiful. They become a work of art, let's say. So similarly, in our life, we go through the dualities of daily life, hunger and thirst and sleep and fatigue and work and age, and all these things are going on in our life all the time. And then, you know, the changing of the economy and the changing of the weather and the changing of society, and we're dealing with left, right, and center, all these different things that are actually shaping us. They're actually honing us. They're actually training us. They're actually giving us worth. They're actually giving us the chance to grow into something that's valuable. So in that sense, we don't need to resist this constant flow of change, this constant flow of adversity. Rather, that's what's coming and making us giving us the chance to be worth something, giving us the chance to mature into someone who has virtue, who has devotion, who has faith, who has all the things that we praise and know are what makes life fulfilling. So in that sense, from that perspective, we can also perceive that every wave is favorable. Although it may be difficult, although it may be uncomfortable, ultimately it gives us the chance to mature. It gives us the chance to improve and become what we're meant to be. And so I'll conclude with that. When we can see life in that way, and then as we discussed in the beginning, when we have such eternal spiritual prospect to attain in the process, then we can carry on happily. We can look at our life and be joyful. And that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Harinam Sankirtan movement is about. It's this wave of positive reciprocation with the unpredictable will of Krishna expressed in the form of the wave of Harinam, the transcendental sound vibration form of the Lord. And so you have people who are spending their life going through this process and always chanting the holy name, always moving on that wave of Harinam. And so we're gathered here tonight to speak about these things and to chant, to engage in Harinam Sankirtan, and show express from our heart the ongoing continuance of that wave. Vaishnave Bho Namo Namo. Okay. Jai Guru.
Bhakti Kamali Maharaj ki.
Does anyone have any questions? Want to ask it?
I have a question. Are you against, like, is it bad for somebody, bad, good, whatever, is it bad for somebody who considers themselves like a different religion? Like, I'm a Christian, I'm just here, I wanted to see what you guys are doing. Is it bad to do this? I mean, maybe I should be asking I just became a Christian. I mean, I feels like everything that you're saying, it sounds so much like a lot of the things that I'm learning that are good, but I don't know, do you guys, this is a different religion, right?
Well, not exactly, because when I mentioned, when there was a question about Christianity, Srila Govinda Maharaj said,
Yeah.
all religions are trying to do good for people. They're trying to elevate them from a gross material conception of life to a spiritual conception of life. So we will see that, and we will see that as some universal aspect of what true, should be the true quality of religion. And one of our teachers, from two centuries ago, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said, fear of God is the religion of the masses, but he said, love of God is the religion of the saints. So, in all religions, whether Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism, what you might call Hinduism, which is actually many religions also, but in all these processes, we'll see that there are saints who by their own example are showing what is actual love. Now, one of the things I also mentioned was that ultimately we are trying to approach divinity, but we'll do so with a feeling of that I'm bereft. I have in myself no good qualities. I don't want to be judged by the Supreme, but rather I'm looking for mercy because I feel myself totally inept and unqualified. So then I'll be looking for that. And it is said that the quality of negativity of that mood will attract the quality of the positive, which is divinity. That a feeling of being bereft, a feeling in need, that will attract that divine mercy. But at the same time, like Maharaj was saying, what will be my viewpoint towards others? Because whether you're a Christian or anything, you're still a person, and I'm coming in involvement with you. So what will be my vision of others? Well, if I'm asking for mercy for myself, approaching divinity, it would be certainly complete hypocrisy if I cannot extend that mood of mercy to others. How can I want it for myself, but to everyone else I'm going to apply law and order, all the jurisdiction of the law. I'm wanting mercy for myself. I want some very strict code for everyone else. That seems like hypocrisy, and it is hypocrisy. So if I want to perceive or receive what is very beautiful in all religions, I will say, in their true form, one will be a sincere seeker in that way. Everyone will be approaching in that way, and they have to extend that mercy which they're looking for to other persons. And how could, somebody is a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim, but because I don't want to extend any mercy to them? Why? Aren't they also a soul? Aren't they also spirit? Aren't they also a seeker, just as I am myself a seeker? So I don't know if that answers you.
No, it does. So much of the spiritual element.
Hear your question.
Doesn't work in here.
Okay. So much of the spiritual element that I'm drawn to in Christianity, it seems to run parallel with everything that you're saying, and I've been able to, in my mind, I've been able to kind of.
So we call that element that you're seeing running through all of that Christianity.
Yeah.
We call that bhakti. Bhakti means actually serving the Supreme, offering oneself to the Supreme. That bhakti. It's there in Christianity. It's there. Any true path, that quality of bhakti will be there. So then we'll say that, we call that Sanatana Dharma. One term we could use is Sanatana Dharma. I can be, for instance, I might be born a Christian, I might be born a Jew, I might be born a Hindu. I can change my religion. I could change my religion 20 times or more in one life. But what is a quality that I can't change? What I can change from one religion to another, but what quality can I not change? And that is the actual quality which is inherent in my soul. And what is the quality of my soul? Well, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says that the quality of every soul is that the soul is an eternal servant of the Lord, or an eternal servant of the Supreme. However you want to look at that. But you are, by constitution, you are a servant of divinity. Whether you're a Christian or Muslim, that is the quality of your soul. You cannot take that away from your soul. That is there. So that is a common element which we'll see. And actually it's there in all people. Not only there in all people, there in all forms of life. Maybe we can't perceive it. Plant, insect, everything. That quality of consciousness of life is there, and that is the quality of life. So that's constitutional quality of life.
Thank you so much.
One thing that Maharaj said that I thought was nice and I wanted to comment on, he said, he gave this example, I'm offering service and what I'm getting back is grace. And I'm giving service and I'm receiving grace. And Bhagavad Gita is saying like that, but if you don't look at it from this perspective, it won't make any sense to you on a material level, because the Bhagavad Gita says, you are entitled to perform your actions, but you're not entitled to the fruits of your actions. So you could, if we put that in a mundane context, then it'll sound like you're entitled to work, but you're not entitled to receive any pay. Now, what kind of labor agreement will you be able to make with that? Oh, yeah, I'm joining this union, or I'm coming to work for this job, and what will be the labor agreement? Oh, you're allowed to work, but you're not allowed to receive any pay. Now, how many people will you be able to recruit to that kind of a program? So on a mundane level, doesn't make any sense. When the Gita says, Bhagavad Gita, means song of God, that you're entitled to perform your action, but you're not entitled to any pay. But if you understand or you think of it in terms of, I'm without any interest in remuneration offering myself, and what I'm receiving in return is grace, or what I'm receiving is, I'm offering, I'm getting, like one of our teachers, someone said to him, after he'd spoken very nicely, someone said to him, thank you. And he said, thank you. He said, why? Thank you. Thank you implies that I'm giving you something and now you're compensating what I've given you by saying thanks or thank you. But he said, but we're both on the same plane. We're on the same plane of consciousness. We're both engaged in an exchange on the level of consciousness. It's not that you repay that by saying thanks. Rather, that we are related on this plane of consciousness. There is no question of just saying thank you or anything, but rather, so he never wanted to be thanked. He didn't want to be thanked. And I also remember another one of my teachers when if you did something wrong, when you said sorry, that was not also the right thing to say, because, there is something involved in, as I'm saying, when I'm trying to receive some grace, I want to be able to offer grace to others. And I'm not looking for any remuneration in exchange for that. That's what's being expressed to us, expressed to me by my teachers. It's like, I'm approaching the divine plane and I'm offering all the raw materials, and what I'm receiving back is called prasadam, it's called mercy. I'm offering my mind and I'm getting back prasadam in the form of advice, divine advice. I'm offering some, fruits and vegetables and all these things, and what I'm getting back is prasadam. It's all been offered to the Lord, and I'm getting back the Lord's mercy in the form of prasadam, which divine foodstuffs. How is it? I'm offering my mind, I'm getting back some divine guidance, right? I'm offering every relationship we have with that divine plane will be offering something to the divine plane and receiving back from that plane grace. And that's what Maharaj was speaking of. I'm offering some service. I'm not seeking to be paid for that service. And what I'm receiving back is more, because I'm just offering basically my services like some raw materials, like some raw materials, like some uncut, unpolished jewel that I'm giving, Maharaj, a little, not exactly a clump of dirt. I'm offering something like something unpolished, and what I'm receiving back is a very valuable jewel, and that's what we're trying to, ultimately, we're trying to offer ourselves, and that's really, when we can do that, then we will see that every wave is very favorable coming to us. Any other person? Question or something?
You're saying that when you say that we are offering some service to the Lord and in return we are getting some grace, that almost sounds like a transaction. But when we hear this word grace in the English language, or we hear ahaituki or causeless, doesn't it imply that that grace is coming to all the living entities, but by this action of service, we are making ourselves fit to receive what grace is being given, to appreciate it, to experience it, and to purify our consciousness through it, as opposed to, I'll give you some service and you'll give me some grace, which will be more of a causeless type of thing. And we understand that behind everything is the will of Krishna, and that will of Krishna is his whimsy, by his desire, not that he is forced to give us grace, although we have heard that for his pure devotees he is feeling so much affection that he wants to give something. So could you comment upon that and clarify as to what you mean by that grace being caused by our service, or
No,
simply our service
called-
allowing us to receive that grace?
It's called a loving exchange. A loving exchange. It's all being done on the plane of love. The service is being offered out of love, and the grace is being given by love. You know, it's a loving exchange. We can understand that. Something prompted by love and something given in love.
So the grace is being strained to only go to those people who are engaged in that transaction, or is the grace
No.
being available to all the living
It's
entities?
available to everyone, but I want to be able to become a recipient. No, to be.
Is that, so that recipient then is a purification of our consciousness to accept
Exactly.
it? Thank you.
Is that okay? All right. Does any of our nice hosts and hostess and is there anything you would like us to do, or is
Let's have Kirtan.
so how about if we sing Nitai Padakamala?
Okay.
Okay.
Nanda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Anitai Parakamala Koti Chandra Sushitala Jayai Jagatajurai Enanitai Mine Bhai Radha Krishna Bhai Tena Enanitai Mine Bhai Radha Krishna Bhai Tena Haraya Namo Krishna.
Okay. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Namaha. Jaravaya Maravaya Krishnavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Madhusudan. Girirari Gopinath Madanamaha. Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra. Radharani Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavindra. Jaya Rupa Sanatan Bhakta Raghunath. Jiva Gopal Bhakta Das Raghunath. Jai Gosai Gauri Charana Vandan. Jai Te Vighnath Abhishta Puran. Jai Gosai Jar Muni Sardas. Samsavara Parare Numara Panchadas. Hare Karana Sevi Bhaktane Bhaat. Janame Janame Mori Abhisat. Jai Gosai Jabe Bhaje Koi Dabas. Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Gauri Prakash. Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pare Bhajai Aman. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pare Padma Gauriyan. Hari Ram Sankirtan Kohe Narottam. Guru Vaishnava Pare Padma Gauriyan. Hari Ram Sankirtan Kohe Narottam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama Rama Hare Rama
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. Jaya Satinandana, Jaya Satinandana. Jaya Satinandana, Gora Hare. Gora Hare, Gora Hare. Gora Hare, Gora Hare. Nitai Gauranga, Gora Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Garanga Gandharvika Giridhari Juki Jai.
Jai.
Tadiya Shri. Every wave is favorable. Ki Jai. What is the name here?
Wave Street Studios.
Huh?
Wave Street Studio.
Wave Street Studio Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramansa Paravajaka Charyashtadara Satashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramansa Paravajaka Charya Ashtatara Satashi Shimad Srila Bhakti Rakakshira Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Namachari Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Premziko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Santa Cruz Socal Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Sevashram Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Chandan Parvat Maharaj Ki Jai. Shripad Bhakti Kamal Tyagi Maharaj Ki Jai. All the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Shri Divya Shakti Devi Dasi Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. We're very indebted to our very kind host who have given us the opportunity to come here tonight. And but first I have to go this way.
Right through there.
Right through there, yes.